Hello again guys, Keith with Bulletproof RC, and I'm back with you to share an update. I picked up a new RTR, the Losi Rock Rey. I've had this vehicle for a couple of days, I've ran it a couple of times, and I see a great deal of potential in this vehicle. Now, if you've been following my channel, you know that I've had the Losi Baja Rey, and I have also featured several videos on my Axial Yeti Rock Racer 1/10 scale. And I've also had the Axial Yeti Score Trophy Truck, both in kit form. So I'm accustomed to this chassis style or layout quite well, and I like it. I like the versatility that these chassis offer. The amount of terrain that this type chassis layout, and when I say that, I'm talking about a rear trailing arm suspension with a solid axle in the rear and independent front suspension. I like the way they handle, I like the versatility where you can take them over some rocks and rough terrain. You can also, blitz around a track. Of course, it's not, I call these vehicles a master of none, but a jack of all trades. So, you're not going to crawl over the rocks like a rock crawler, and you're not going to race around a track like you would with a short course truck, but you can go a lot of places, and you can do it with finesse. So far, this vehicle is pretty much stock. I did add a spare tire to the rear end of the vehicle, just simply because in the case of my Yeti 1/10 scale rock racer, one of the best things I did for the vehicle's handling was added a spare tire in the back. And what this does is it balances the vehicle out, since the rear end of these vehicles are quite light. And one thing I noticed, that the Baja Rey and the Score Trophy Truck, having the cage layout in the rear end with a spare tire, made them handle much differently than the Yeti Rock Racer did without a spare tire. So I think that's definitely a necessity. I know I could have put any spare tire back there, but these tires are quite big, guys. They're a lot bigger than the average 2.2 tire. So what I did, I went over to Losi's website and I pulled the job number for their Maxxis creepy crawlers, and I ordered 2 of them. They come with just a solid black wheel, and no amazing feat or accomplishment here in how I mounted them. I just took a couple of tie wraps and or cable ties, whatever you want to call them, and I put them through the wheels and onto the roll cage. The end result was, I think it looks pretty good, and it's very secure. It ain't going anywhere. And since you don't take the cage off of this like you do the Yeti, there's no need to have a screw-on bolt and all that stuff to take it off to get to the body pins and all that stuff. So basically, if you want to remove the cage on this, you got to take a couple of screws loose right here and on the bottom, and that spare tire is not in the way of anything. The other thing I did for aesthetics is very simple, but I think it's much needed. I took the stupid grill and lights off the front end. To me, out of the box, this vehicle looks like a side-by-side. In fact, it looks like a Polaris side-by-side. And take those light stickers and grill stickers off, and I just put a decal up there, even though these aren't KMC wheels. And to me, it just overall now looks like a rock bouncer instead of a side-by-side. So anyway, that's a opinion, I know, and it may not be one that other people share. But okay, guys, thought I'd show you some plans that I have for this vehicle. First of all, aluminum steering rack from Losi. Relatively inexpensive and should do a good job of stiffening up this front end a little bit in the steering department. I might need to address the spring that's in there. If there's not a tension tightener, then I may have to put a stiffer spring in there. Then SCTE turnbuckles seem to be the correct length to use up front, so I'm going to replace those. I have this motor, I already had it on hand, and I'm going to throw it in this car just simply because the 2800 6-pole motor that's in there does cog with the included 130 amp fuse ESC. This is just a motor I've had on hand for a while. It's 3674. When I used it before, it did not cog at all, and it should provide a little bit more torque, being a little longer than the 3665 2800 that's in there now. And it is capable of 4S. Now I think that might be a little bit much to use in this vehicle, so I'm going to keep it to 3S, probably go up to a 15 tooth pinion. The vehicle currently has a 12 tooth pinion in it now, so I think that should even out and give me the power and speed that I need. As far as center diff goes, I'm going to take the fluid that's in there out and put some 1 million weight Tamiya diff oil in there to stiffen up the center. That will not lock the diff, guys. I've used this in the Team Associated rival. It didn't lock the center diff up. It just gave it a little bit more stiffness, so that way all your power doesn't bleed to the front end. So I believe it'll help me get over the rocks and everything without the center diff dipping out. As far as the front end, I'm going to use the same thing I used in my 1/10 Rock Racer Yeti, and that's 500K. And that should take care of the front end dipping out over rocks, because right now it's pretty loose diff in the front end, and I think that'll help a lot. One thing I did have go wrong with my Baja Rey, the only thing I broke the entire time I had it was I busted a bearing, and it was on the front, or the rear end, the front bearing. No, it was the back bearing. You got two bearings in here. They're 5x10s that hold the pinion in the off the end of the drive shaft mesh to the ring gear that's in this rear end. And under power, a lot of torque, you know, goes against those bearings. And I did blow one, and it completely disintegrated. What I replaced it with was an Acer ceramic bearing. I know ceramic bearings are generally for smoothness, but those are high performance bearings. And after replacing, yeah, they're the Pro Series. But after replacing that in the Baja Rey, I didn't have any more issues out of bearings, and I put those in the rear and the front end. So I've got 3 more of these guys on order. A set of 4 will cost you about 25 bucks. So it's relatively cheap upgrade. Outside of that, that's the only upgrades I've got, except for a 23 kilogram Power HD servo, waterproof servo. I'm going inexpensive on the upgrades on this vehicle, guys. Just not going to go over the top like I did with the Yeti. I don't think the Baja Rey or Rock Rey needs a lot of upgrades, but we got to fix that loose front end and cogging and those bearing issues. So let's pull the Yeti out and do some comparisons. Okay, as you can see, I've got my Yeti and my Rock Rey side by side, and the difference in the tires should be apparent, because these are RC 4-wheel drive rock crushers that I've got on the Yeti, and they're slightly taller than the stock Yeti tire. So as you can see, those Maxxis Creepy Crawlers are some serious tires. And by the way, if I didn't mention already, they're relatively soft. I'm very pleased with the compound that Losi has used. They're very, very comparable to the rock crushers. Maybe a little bit harder in compound, but they got soft foams in them. I think they'll do well. And if you've been following my video series, you probably remember my Yeti looking a little different than this, but I went back to the stock body that I painted up for it, and just since keep the style similar for the comparisons. Now my Yeti is by far not stock, so if you're wondering why my Yeti's sitting up in the front, it's because I've got Proline shocks up front, and those are the power strokes for the rear of a slash, which are a little bit longer than the stock Yeti shocks. So it actually gave me a little more ground clearance in the front end. And I know you're thinking, well, that'd make you roll over. Well, believe it or not, if you put a spare tire in the back and you soften the suspension in the rear, it doesn't. It makes it very stable. So I can crawl over rocks, and it's very drivable the way it is. Trust me, guys. But that's your comparison in the front. I believe with the tires and everything, the Rock Rey might be a little bit wider side to side. They're pretty close. The side shot, they're pretty close in length. Now again, my Yeti is not stock. I've got super shafty rear trailing arms with RPM rod ends on there, the long shank version. So I add a little bit of length to my Yeti, and so that kind of made them even. But stock Yeti wouldn't be as long probably, if I remember correctly. But I'm pretty happy with the overall comparison. Again, I like my Yeti a lot. It's one of my favorite vehicles that I run. So when I found out the Rock Rey was coming out, I got pretty excited. Let's flip these things around, look at them in the back. Okay, from the rear, they're looking pretty close as well. Of course, I've got several upgrades in this Yeti. That's the SSD wide diamond rear axle that I de-anodized, and because it comes gray or black, and I wanted the silver to match the rest of the aluminum on the Yeti. And it makes the rear ends look very similar. They did beef up the Rock Rey's rear drive shaft a little bit over the Baja Rey. They added a little bit more plastic in the where things meet up right here, I guess, to keep the rear axle from breaking right here. I know of one guy who broke a rear axle. I believe it's Keko RC. He's on YouTube as well. But I followed the Baja Rey on RC Crawler forums, and had several people message me through YouTube, and I don't know of anyone else breaking this rear axle other than Keko RC. But it is nice to see a little bit more plastic there just in case you need it. It's the same rear trailing system. Everything's identical, of course, to the Baja Rey. And of course you got that nice aluminum chassis and everything. So, well, guys, I guess that pretty much does it. Just wanted to give an overview and comparison and what my plans are. So I guess that'll finish this video up. And as always, guys, like and subscribe if the shoe fits, and keep an eye out for more Losi Rock Rey videos down the road. And you guys have a great day.